Okay, Doc, thanks for joining us. We're here with Doc Gilday,
Absolutely.
good friend, good mentor to me. We spent a lot of time together. I'm going to brag about you a little bit because he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. Super highly accomplished doctor in the ER and an E.R.Doc, so
Yep.
you work in a super high stressful environment. And I'm
Yep.
telling you right now, if something ever happens, he's the guy you want right next to you. And I was blessed in my career to have him next to me for a lot of things, and the amount of confidence that gave me. But one of the things that Doc won't tell you that I will is that he's probably one of the most badass doctors you'll ever meet because he's also one of the best shots that we've ever trained with.
Well,
And so,
thanks to you and a lot of the guys we've worked with. I've grown because of that.
yeah,
So thank you for
it's
that.
yeah, you're welcome. It's
Yeah.
been awesome to watch. So, the intro into that is Doc is our medical doctor on the
Yep.
SWAT team,
Yep.
and you're a fully kitted up, fully trained SWAT operator. And so you've been with us on the team for quite a while. And I got to tell you, man, thank you for being there. Thank you for everything you've taught us. The amount of confidence that I've had just knowing that I have an ER doctor right there ready to go if something happens. But
Well,
no, it
thank
really
you.
is a blessing on the team.
Thank you.
So,
It's funny. I tell people all the time, and even to the other operators, I'm like, I love being there to serve, but I feel like I get twice or three times as
yeah,
much back
yeah,
as what, that's the great thing about service is you usually end up unintentionally getting more stuff
yeah.
back than you do through just the act of service. So, but it's a pleasure being with you guys. Like I said, we've had a blast.
Oh, man.
So many great and somewhat terrible times we had to get through.
Yep.
But we got through them, and I think it was just a testament to our friendship and the whole SWAT team and
Yeah.
just the police force in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks
Yeah,
for being here. Pretty
yeah.
cool to see you step up like that. And man, I tell you, like, and we would go through our qualifications sometimes were
Oh,
like
they were the best.
2 to 3 hours long,
Oh,
just trying to
absolutely.
get through these courses. And I always try to team up with Doc because he's the best handgun shooter I've ever met.
I don't know. I thank you for. I don't know about that, but I thank you.
Oh,
I
you're
do
up
love
there.
it. I do love
You're
it.
up there.
Yeah, thank you.
And all that's because everything we would do with rifle and then transition to handgun and everything. You always had your handgun, so everything we were doing,
Absolutely.
even our 100-yard shots
Yep.
and stuff, was you learned how to do it with a handgun. So
It's a steep learning curve.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
missed a lot, made a lot of misses.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yep,
way it works. But
yep.
man, we would team up and go through those calls together. And I knew it was like, oh, we're gonna get through this pretty quick.
Oh, we smoked.
Yeah, and then we
It was
transferred to
awesome.
left hand.
Yeah, we still laugh people going through that sometimes.
No, good stuff. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Yeah, you mentioned something really good is that we have been through a lot. But there has been times where just knowing you're there and the training that you gave us on, true stop the bleed, combat first aid, how to address trauma, wound care, you have in several times have been that voice in my ear as I'm going through stuff to make sure we're not missing something or what the next action items are, which is just a testament to training. But yeah, there's been several times because literally you would stand over us
Oh, yeah,
narrating
yeah.
how we're going to take care of this patient in
Yeah.
training. So it's been awesome. But one time in particular, I remember we had a pretty gnarly one, and I'd taken my team into the bottom, and we came back out, and the next team was in going upstairs, and we knew it was bad. We knew it was rough, and we knew it was violent. And I remember at that point, we just had nothing left for us to do at that moment, and we're in the driveway behind the armored vehicle, and you and I start setting up like a trauma center
Yeah.
because we were that convinced
Yeah.
like it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But man, I'll tell you, just the confidence knowing that like, yep, we got this. And I got Doc. He's going to take care of it. I'm going to do whatever he needs.
I'm glad you feel that way because I do remember that, and I remember that's probably the most scared
Yeah.
I've been, not for myself, but for
Yep.
the team. I mean, I remember I was literally sitting there because I wouldn't deploy into those hot zones.
Yeah.
But I'd be kind of on the outskirts, and I remember I was sitting there saying prayers for you guys, like,
Yeah.
don't let it. This is the most real it's been yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it worked out. We got the bad guy
Yep.
and everything worked out. But just knowing that we have that atmosphere
Yeah.
and the effect it's had on our families too, because my wife, when we started, we were pregnant and newly married, and here I am going off on the SWAT team, and she's like, "What are you doing?" She was terrified,
Yeah.
right? And by the end of my career on there, she didn't want me to leave because she
Yeah.
was so confident in our training and the people
Oh,
and gotten to
absolutely.
know everybody. It was like, no, she's in the best place that we could be. So
Absolutely. Yep.
awesome, good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about your decision and kind of how that led up to be on the team, because you got a great job. You're an E.R.Doc.
Yeah. I think, most ER people who are in the ER environment, and I'm sure this is true of any kind of first responder environment, have a little bit of an adrenaline junkie kind of mentality. They want to be there. usually a little bit type A. They're usually a little bit of maybe a little bit of hero complex kind of thing. They want to be on the front line. They want to be hands on.
Yeah.
The guy who was in charge of the medical direction for our SWAT team decided he wanted to kind of separate that from his duties, and he asked me if I wanted to be involved. He's one of the partners in my practice, and I really molded over and talked to my wife, which is, I think, the smartest thing move you're going to do is you talk to the wife first. Yeah. And she was very hesitant, and it took about a year and a half to, I would kind of come back to it every now and again, and she'd say, no, I just don't feel it's ready. And she and I are consider ourselves pretty spiritual people, and we pray about that kind of stuff, and she just didn't feel like she was hearing that was the right time or the right thing. And then one day I brought it up again, just because this medical director brought it up, and I brought it up to her not expecting anything. She said, maybe that'd be good for you. And she wanted more information, but she got to see, kind of like you're alluding to, that this is a specialized team of professionals who take their work very seriously. Yeah. They like to have fun, but it's not at the expense of doing their job. And they are the cream of the crop when it comes to acting professional. They know their job. The reinforcement that I was going to be protected was kind of foremost on her mind. And then she got to see some of the vehicles and the special tactical equipment that we had, and she's like, "Oh, I think you're going to be safer than we are at home." Yeah. And she was pretty much right. And then like you said, that gets reinforced throughout the years of experience, and you see things. In fact, it's kind of funny now. It's if I get a SWAT alert, which is usually like 1 a.m. or something, she barely wakes up. And she'll be like, "Okay, go get them," or whatever. But one time she's like, "Why don't you guys just throw a flashbang and get out of there," or something? So she's kind of attenuated to it now. But yeah, it was something that I was really passionate about, and she knew that. And I think it's been great for me, because what I've learned over I've been with our SWAT team for 10 years now, and I've learned that it is something that brings me super joy. Mm-hmm. It's very life-giving, not because we're doing anything reckless, but just being around the professionals, being around our team members, getting to do training that ultimately can make a difference in a life or death situation, as you've alluded to. And then that is a way it almost helps decompress me. It helps, it separates me from the mundane everyday that I go to. And no matter what your job is, you could be a movie star, you could be action hero, whatever it is, it's your everyday, it's your commonplace, and that's the routine you get into. And then to do something different and maybe use some of your expertise in a way that's different is life-giving. So that's what I've really found, that I just look more and more getting involved. Even the 1 a.m. wake ups or the PT training, whatever it might be, it gets harder as the years go by, but it's just as enjoyable.
Yeah, that's good. No, I have said for years, like in a lot of big portion of my career with the team, I was also a child sex crimes detective. And I had about almost between 150 200 cases over that time frame, which took a lot out of me. And I even recognized at that time that this, like you were saying, was a release. It was something different. It was something I had better control over. It was something that we could really focus on and get better. So it's not funny.
As you know, I would put together like a little team video at the end of some of the years. And especially when people have stepped down, we'll do a little interview with them. And to a person, I always ask the question, what are you going to miss most? And the answer 100% is the camaraderie. Yeah. It's the people that you're working with. 100%. No one's ever said, "Oh, I'm going to miss, shooting, some target or something." No, it's the camaraderie, it
really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing it. So next time you're at the ER, you never know how safe you might actually be. Yeah. So that's good. Incredible, guys. Thank you for that. I want to talk about, our podcast is called The Other Side. We want to talk about maybe the other side of law enforcement, and a lot of that has to do with the stressors that we're under, the things that we go through, and we'll get into, what the side effects, or the direct effects of those are, and how we mess with that. But really glad we can talk to you from the medical perspective, because in the ER, I think there's a lot of similar type of stressors that you guys go under that we do out in the field as police or fire and that type of thing. So anything you want to talk about on that, just like what the environment is like coming in with someone who's got, serious medical issues of any kind.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that any first responder job that puts you in a role of responsibility, especially for someone's life, right? And
Yeah.
whether that's fire, police, military, emergency medicine, or something on the front lines, um, the it may go by a different name, but the mentality is always there, right? It's always you are being asked to do something and step into a role where you are responsible for someone's life, well-being, or a child's life or well-being, whatever it might be. And whether that's medical or because they're in, danger from an assailant or whatever it might be, you are asked to do this job. And the end result on us is the same. It's a
Yeah.
degree of hypervigilance. It's
Yeah.
a degree of ownership. There's this sense of, it's almost like being on a high wire. I can't fall from this. I can't take a misstep. The pressure is there, and we get used to it a little bit because
Yes.
that's it's our everyday role we've asked, but you never fully acclimate to it, and your body responds to it in a different way.
Yes.
So when you've asked me to be on here, I see so many similarities, especially being able to cross between those two areas, the medical and the law enforcement. Things go by different names, but the response to our bodies, to our psyches, to our home life, to whatever it might be, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's 100%
Yeah.
the same
The
idea.
cortisol, the stress.
Of course.
The,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
the adrenaline.
Yep. Exactly.
And the pressure.
Pressure.
Now,
Yep.
I've really grown to appreciate what you guys do and what our medics do out there too, because a lot of what we deal with is stressful in the sense of like violence, overcoming violence, taking people into custody, and then immediately being in charge of their initial medical care until someone like you gets there or medics get there.
Right.
But what I've realized lately in talking to other people that are in the same field is that how intimate what you do is compared to maybe what I do. Like we get in there, we get with the people, we do our thing, but you guys are in their injury with them. You are trying to get information with them. It's very close contact. Like you really, I don't want to say bond, but there is, I mean, you're right there with them in some of their worst moments. And so I imagine that creates more stress and pressure, and then family comes and you're trying to save this person. And then I've seen you in the ER, like you've got, 15 other rooms you're also trying to balance, right?
There's a degree of juggling. Just talking, I think about one of the times that this is a few years ago, I had in our ER, we have two kind of trauma rooms back side to side. And there's a wall between them that you could break down, but it was kind of put together at this point, and we had a motor vehicle collision come in, and in one room was a 7-year-old who was dying, and in the next room was her mother, and I had to go take care of the 7-year-old that we couldn't save and deal with that. And I remember very distinctly, like feeling the tears well up, feeling everything, like just, because you see your daughter or your family member in that. And then having to turn right around, like literally say, well, I have to put all that aside and go take care of her mom and go to the next room over, because her mom was coming in at that point. And her mom was concussed and asking, where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? Who had just passed away in the room next door. And I had to make a decision. Do I tell this concussed woman over and over again that her daughter has died because she keeps on asking the same question? Do I not tell her at all? How do we take care of her? What comes first? And what's scary about it is, from a job perspective, is you have to turn off, not that you don't have the emotion, you have the emotion, you have to be able to compartmentalize it and turn it off at that moment.
Yeah.
And not give sound care, because you want to be the advocate, you want to do everything right, you want to be there, whatever they need, you want to be there for them. But you have to do that at the expense of yourself in the moment.
Yep.
And then you have to be able, the hard part is, can you revisit it later? Or will you revisit it later?
Right.
Because we tend not to.
Why would we? We'd have to go back through
exactly.
it. Yeah.
It hurts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then you're on to the next one and on the next one, next shift, and then you're exhausted. So you go home, sleep, go back to the next shift,
and same thing
piles up.
With you guys. I'm sure you're dealing with something. You've got a guy who's been trying to hit you in the face or shoot you, whatever. You have to treat them professionally, restrain them, take care of them, and then guess what? Next call comes out, and guess what? Yeah. It's just over. Just do it over and over again. Yep.
Yeah, and I like to describe it as we get into, all of us, we get into the worst moments of people's lives a lot of the times, and the stuff that they walk away with from there may change their life forever.
Absolutely.
And I was there too, and so were my guys and the people that we work with. But then they go on with their life dealing with that. We go on to the next call.
Right.
We go on to the next shift, and that's how that that builds. I describe it as a balloon, and there's a lot. We constantly filling the balloon with water,
Yep.
right? And a lot of us will say, well, we're going to do everything we can to make the balloon tougher, but what do we do to let the water out? And we
Exactly.
never do. And so that's kind of the purpose of why I wanted you here,
100%.
why we want to talk about that, because
Yeah.
how long have you been doing emergency medicine?
Counting residency, almost 25 years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I love about you is that you've thrived in that environment. You've learned how to, deal with it
Yeah.
and be good at it. Whereas I see a lot of people like they'll do it for a few years and then they're like, I'm going to family practice or I'm going to go do
Oh,
something
yeah.
super safe.
There was a paramedic I knew who I'm still good friends with, and he used the exact same description you did. He only used the idea of the water bucket, and he said,
Hmm.
"Your water bucket is there. You can fill it with water as much as you want, but there's going to be a time when it overflows,
Yeah.
and you have to know when that's going to happen. And it might take years, it might take weeks, it might take who knows,
Hmm.
but at the same time." It's going to fill up at some point. How do you relieve the pressure on
Yeah.
the water bucket? Same thing with the balloon idea.
Yeah. Love it. Well, can we get into some science then?
Ooh.
Because you're the
Well,
expert.
now you're talking.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Now it's good stuff.
So as I went through my PTSD diagnosis, what we had to realize is that I had so much built up under the pressure, just like we're talking about, but I was still functioning, right?
Yeah.
And when you're purpose driven, like we are in what we do, that you'll take a lot. You'll take a lot of suffering. And if you really feel that's what you're there to be, then you're going to just take it. And we're never taught to get rid of this. And so I started having not only a ton of physical ailments that were just couldn't explain, couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
I hadn't slept in most, if all of my adult life. And I talk about how the first time I had sleep issues addressed for stress and performance related, like I was a high performer, I was in the 5th grade. So this was a lifelong battle for me. And mentally started suffering as well, just, attitude, and there was a point in my career where I just hated coming to work. I would have physical reactions just coming into the city, going into and those are all signs, right? Those are all signs.
Right.
What I started to learn was that we're not broken. You're not broken. It is not that something is wrong with you. It is how your brain and body connect,
100%.
and it's what we go through, and it's totally natural. It's just no different than having a system that's been overworked.
Yeah.
And we got to repair it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it is. And so hopefully you find some encouragement in that. And Doc and I want to go through some of that physiological response that we have to stress. And the first one that we started talking about even before you got here was sleep, and how so much of our sleep is affected by our jobs, and we tend to blame it on shift work and stuff like that, but there's a stress component to it as well that's even more important that will affect your sleep. And so I had heard, oh, you got to get 7-8 hours of sleep. Okay, well, why? I don't have time for that. It doesn't happen. Well, there's actually some cycles of sleep you need to go through. And so I had to learn how to prep myself for sleep, whereas before it was just kind of a nuisance. But let's talk about what are the effects of poor sleep. Let's start with brain.
So sleep is, obviously we're basically, if you think about how we function from a physiologic standpoint, we are rechargeable batteries, right? We need the sleep to regain the energy we need to set our systems kind of back to zero. As you kind of alluded to, and we need a certain amount. Now, that amount differs for everybody. There's always that great individual who can function on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and we all hated him in college, or because they could always get by and do whatever they needed to do. But for most of us, it's probably somewhere in the region of like 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
To go through those cycles, the 4 stages plus the REM, and it's been a long time since medical school, and I've had to think about it. But those ideas that you have to go through those certain cycles to recharge, let your body rest. But there's a lot of stuff that happens that you don't even think about in sleep. To us, we think of sleep as just a period of rest where we just, our body kind of winds down, but actually it has to go through a lot of hormonal changes. One of the big one being cortisol release and the use of cortisol, what that role is. And that to take sleep away means to take away a lot of those physiological compensations. So you talk about what happens as we, same thing that happened if you overwork something, it's going to break down at some point. If you don't give it a chance to recover, a chance to repair, a chance to do whatever, that's going to happen. And the same thing with sleep. We're going to get frustrated from a psychiatric standpoint. Anger, depression, um, frustration, lashing out, yelling at your kids, yelling at your wife or spouse or whoever it might be, poor performance at work,
Hmm.
cognitive dysfunction. I mean, how many times do you think, oh man, why did I do that stupid mistake? Well, maybe it's because you haven't allowed your brain to recover, and let it do what it needs to do in those periods it needs to do it. But then it also, I mean, you look at blood pressure issues, you look at heart issues, you look at, I mean, let's get into nitty gritty, sexual performance issues. I mean, physical well being. How come we're not losing that fat that's around our midsection? How come we're not being able to do the things we normally did when we were 21? Well,
Yeah.
some of that's physiologic. Yeah, I mean, I'm 51, so I'm probably not going to perform like I did when 30 years ago. But at the same time, maybe there are factors working against me that I'm not even realizing, or I'm not optimizing so that I can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the
This
sexual
is,
performance is not an issue. I'm just throwing that out
yeah.
there. Just as
Disclaimer. Thank you.
disclaimer. Yeah.
This is the heart of the 43rd mission. This is what I had to learn. This is what I had to come to grips with because I thought I was above it. I thought I could
Yeah.
just keep pushing
Oh
through.
yeah.
And as I had my wake up calls, which we can learn about in different videos, but each time that they would prescribe to me different medication for those symptoms, I would feel better. So I would
Yeah.
keep pushing and then it would get
Right.
worse. And
Yep.
then they'd up the meds and then they
Yep.
up the meds. And
Yep.
before long, it got totally out of control.
It's a
Um,
vicious cycle, and it's not dealing with the root issue,
yeah.
right? It's band-aiding. It's
Yeah.
it's trying to compensate for the small thing. Yep.
And that's why I wanted to start talking about sleep because that was the first thing I had to learn.
Yeah.
Because in our world, for example, when we talk about cognitive repair, we know you need 2 to 3 sleep cycles to take high emotion memories and actually
Sure. Yep. Yep.
configure them into a chronological order so
Yep.
you can
Yep.
give a better statement because
Mm-hmm.
emotions and the way the brain works, you need that sleep and that
Yeah.
cycle. So we know the sleep repairs. I mean, there's a great cartoon movie, I forget what it's called now, movies about this, right? Where this is how your brain works. And it's not, it's just science. It's not myth. It's
Yep.
just how your brain
Yeah.
has to recategorize everything
Oh,
and bring
totally.
itself back out.
When I was in, I think it was early residency or medical school, they came out with a study that they compared 24 hours of wakefulness to someone who's met the legal level of intoxication.
Hmm.
And the person who's been awake for 24 hours always 100% did worse than the person who was intoxicated in performance as far as driving, cognitive function, that kind of thing.
Sure.
We just don't realize it because we are, first of all, our mindset, especially in the United States, is you go until you can't, until you're broken. There's you have to push, push, push.
Hmm.
You don't take time for yourself. You recover others before yourself. I mean, those are all great, noble things, but at the same time, you are doing yourself everyone else a disservice if you don't take that time to recover.
You have to.
You have to, and you're going to make a mistake. And that was the big thing in residency. This was at the time when when I did my residency, I did a 5-year combined residency, and about the third year, they had a big transition from going from being on call for 36 hours to doing shift work, and they were seeing because people were accidentally killing patients with stupid little mistakes you would never do if you
Sure.
had a little sleep. I mean,
Yeah.
it's boiled down to that.
Yeah, and I had to be convinced because, like I said, this was a lifetime problem for me,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
I could still perform, I could still push through it.
Yeah.
So why do I have to
Why?
worry
Yeah,
about this?
exactly.
And as I started deep diving into it, I realized that a lot of what we do prevents us from actually getting sleep. And that's different between being unconscious for 6 hours
Right.
versus actually going through those cycles. And
Right.
so I had to monitor my sleep and learn about it. It was actually accidental because I had gotten a watch that did it and had been wearing it for quite some time, a year or so or more. And my sleep was terrible.
Yeah.
And I just ignored that application. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
And as I started deep diving, I started seeing results, and I was actually seeing restorative sleep for the first time, probably in my life, and that cascaded a whole bunch of effects. Yeah. And so when we teach that, I actually show the charts. I'm like, here it is. Here's a good night's sleep. Here's a bad night's sleep. Here's effects of alcohol. Here's effects of, for me, eating too close to sleep.
Yep.
Really sleep prepping, the bilateral movement that I do before, an hour or two before
things
bed.
like being on your phone. I mean, how many of us go to bed looking at Instagram or whatever it might be? I mean, that right there, screws you up. Yeah.
Yep.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
But once I had this sleep cycle down, I was like, oh, I really want people to understand how important this is because I've been told this over and over and over. You got to get sleep. You got to get sleep. But I've never really been told the why and the how. And so that's what we created as part of our mission. So that's how our brains work, recategorize things. And a lot of times when you talk about post-traumatic stress, I like calling it post-traumatic stress injury
Yeah.
because it's
Yep. That's what
recoverable.
it
It's
is.
just
Yep.
things we can
Yep.
address. It's
Hmm.
not, over.
It's not a disorder because it's just naturally what
It's
we
how our
do.
brains
Yeah,
work, and you
exactly.
just overworked it. And when you don't
Exactly.
address it, what
Right.
happens is those emotions get attached to the memory and they can't get
Right.
away.
Right.
And so once you do that, then the emotions go away, and it's just something you've been through, but
Right.
you're not re-experiencing it, and
Exactly.
it's not bringing you down.
Exactly.
So sleep's so important. I don't want to go too far into it and lose our audience, but
No.
if there's anything we can do, and that's the first thing I start with in our wellness program, if you want to learn how to win at wellness, is we start talking first and foremost about sleep. And the nice part is that I never realized this. There's action items you can do to prep for sleep. Like I said,
Yeah.
stay off the phone,
Yeah.
some breathing, some meditation if you need to, or just calm and relax and prep yourself for sleep.
Yeah.
Stay off the blue screens.
Right.
For me, I got to watch, I can't eat too close to bed because I'll digest. I won't get that restorative sleep.
I would even take it, if I may, a step further. I think you need to think about almost sleep, much like you think about your diet or exercise, is that you almost need to think about it 12 hours ahead of time. Like when you're waking up in the morning, you should probably be saying, hey, this is how I'm going to plan on getting to bed at an appropriate time, because there's so much that you do throughout the day that will affect you later on. One of the things, for my 44th birthday, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Hey, awesome.
Yeah.
Don't recommend it for anybody. But what I found is, as you know, I started having to monitor my blood sugars all the time, and you don't realize if you have something at 8 a.m., that blood sugar can stay with you throughout the day. You're still seeing the effects of it depending on what you eat at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with sleep. If you go out and you're just doing nothing but hitting caffeine and the monsters and the whatever it is, whatever your selection is, the sodas or whatever, that is still, there's going to be some lingering effects down the road. Alcohol, and if you're constantly using the brake and accelerator and brake system, how is your body supposed to respond to that? It's getting mixed messages. It doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So you have to start prepping for that. Now, maybe 12 hours is a little bit of an exaggeration, but the idea is be mindful about what you're doing so that 3 or 4 hours before you go to bed, you don't eat the huge meal. You don't drink the bottle of alcohol or the monster. And people know this. They say, hey, I can't have a cup of coffee at dinner. That's part of it. But maybe it needs to go a little bit step further, especially if you're struggling with it.
Yeah.
Because and when it comes to the mental aspect of sleep, there's a whole bunch of physical aspects as far as relaxation, saying things, but at least for me, turning my mind off is almost the hardest part. And I don't know about you, but I've talked to a lot of people who have experienced this, especially in the 40s and 50s, is the 3 a.m. wake up. Like the notorious 3 a.m. wake up where you've had a little bit of sleep and your body kind of says, okay, well, I've kind of gotten through maybe 1, maybe 2 of my REM cycles, but all of a sudden the stressors of whatever is hitting you the next day, the next week, whatever, come in, and now you're up for 2 hours just rolling with it, and how much of effect that does. So there's certainly the psychiatric component of sleep cannot be dismissed.
Yeah. And you mentioned caffeine, alcohol. I mean, food, especially high sugar, high carbohydrate foods, which will convert to sugar. I've tested it, some by accident. I was like, oh god, I ate at 9 p.m. because we were out with baseball or whatever. I've done the alcohol, I've tested, I've shown the charts, and I'll show them like, here's what your body's doing, and that's why you may feel like you're unconscious, or you're drinking caffeine and your baseline's just up here. And I've talked to people many times that are drinking 200 to 400 milligrams of caffeine up to 1 to 2 hours before bed or before sleep cycle, and they have horrible sleep. Like, the half-life of that is like 5 hours. So we go through, what does that mean? Well, in 10 hours you still have a quarter of it in your system, or whatever. Like we can do the math on it, and I'm like, see that you still have like 2 cups of coffee in your system and you haven't had it for hours.
Just to give you a frame of reference, we used to treat migraines with caffeine at times. This is kind of older school, but so you had to have a prescription to write for IV caffeine. It was 500 milligrams. So that's you're drinking 400 milligrams of caffeine. You're getting basically medical grade.
It's insane.
Caffeine infusion.
And it's part of our culture. It seems like, I'm just going to grab a couple energy drinks and power through.
We hit that accelerator, and then we have to do something to hit the brakes. We have to say, I got to get some sleep now, so I'm going to pop an Ambien, or I'm going to use some alcohol, or some NyQuil, or Benadryl, whatever. So you're constantly doing this to your system.
No, it's good. And I can't stress enough on sleep mentally, like we said. And then physically, you talked about some of the things that happen to you physically, heart problems, digestion, all that stuff. I'd like to get into that a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Because when I unlocked that, it changed
it's
everything.
Yeah.
But learn how to sleep. You mentioned cortisol. Let's talk about the effects of cortisol from stress as a hormone, because the brain and emotions aren't bad. They're good things, but they're primarily driven by like chemical signals and hormones that get released. And they're good things. Like they make us perform well. They make us, sharp as a tack at times, make you feel alive, energized. Like for us, I'll be driving a car. If you think about that, I'll be navigating. I got a conversation in my left earpiece. I've got a conversation in my right earpiece from another radio channel. I'm watching the screen and getting information on the call that I'm going to. I'm navigating. I'm thinking about tactics, legal authority. I mean, my brain is just like loving it, right?
It's a drug.
Until I come down. Because there's always that equal and opposite reaction. But the cortisol is one of the biggest things we deal with, you too. So let's talk about what cortisol does in your body and how we can release it.
So I think we need to go back and, again, at the expense of not losing any viewers, a real recap of cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone, right? It's your brain, your hypothalamus releases a hormone to your pituitary gland. Pituitary gland sends this message out to your adrenal glands, which are situated on top of your kidneys, and your adrenal glands are responsible for some of the hormone releases. There's several different hormones that can come from that, like steroids as far as muscle building, but also this steroid-based cortisol is derived from cholesterol, and it peaks, and it has certain times where it's higher in parts of the day and lower in parts of the day. So, for instance, you hear about people who have heart attacks in the morning. Well, part of the reason they think that is because cortisol levels spike, and you get this stress-induced or stress hormone-released adrenaline. And that puts a little bit of strain on the heart. Heart goes into ischemic reaction, and they have a heart attack. The flip side of that is we've all experienced that midday lull between 2 and 4 p.m. where we're like, I got to take a nap. That's because our cortisol levels have hit their lowest peak, right? So they start high, they kind of continue throughout the day, the morning, they dip down early afternoon, they start to rise up as we start to get ready for bed, and then the cycle continues itself. The thing about cortisol, and it's true of any hormone, is you don't want to have that hormone all the time, always on. It has to be a balance. And you want that, like when you're talking about, it's a stress hormone, so you want it at times of stress, right? If someone's coming at you with a knife, you need that cortisol, right? You need to, have that spike of energy, so your fight or flight response. But you don't want to have that all the time. And the problem with our jobs, and a lot of jobs out there, I mean, especially in this day and age, is that we are at this hyper-vigilant, hyper-adrenalized state all the time. Our cortisol levels are spiking, and they're staying up. They're not going down. They're staying up. So you want that give and take to it, because when you do release cortisol, you're breaking down sugars for your body to use. You're stopping sort of metabolic growth issues. You're releasing things. You're allowing the brain to get sugar it needs. All these things for the fight or flight response. But that's part of the sympathetic system. You can't run sympathetic. It's just like you can't drive your car with the accelerator down all the time, right? You need to allow it to give and take. You got to be able to turn that off. And that cortisol at higher levels is going to cause the high blood pressure, the stress, the dysfunction of the organs, the blood sugar, malabsorption of blood sugars, and all this different kind of stuff. And I would not be the 100% the endocrinologist to talk to about it, but I know enough to say, hey, you don't want that all the time.
Right.
You need to scale that back. And sometimes if we're in a state where we're pushing that over and over again, either through substance use, through situational environmental use, or just simply not allowing ourselves to go to that state of relaxation, then we're asking it to exhaust ourselves. And we need cortisol. The flip side is true. If we don't have enough cortisol, then we can't react to those situations. And so, again, you don't want too much. You don't want too little. You got to find that Goldilocks just right area.
Yeah. And, I'm guilty of training in the sympathetic nervous system, that high stress area, all the time. And even as an instructor now, I still believe in that. And that's the thing, is like I've contributed to this problem. And by the way, we're just talking about our job stressors. We're not talking about life stressors, relationships, family, finances, everything. I mean, you pile that on top as well. And life events and whatever. I think, and some stress can be good stress. I mean, the birth of your children. So
Totally.
super stressful time when you're
Right.
not sleeping and all this stuff, but
Right.
it's not necessarily bad, but it's just life.
Yeah.
But I have explained that many times that I'm guilty of training as an instructor and as an advanced instructor. Like we're training, we're going to give you the skill sets, we're going to build on that, and then we're going to push you, and then we're going to stress you out and
Yeah.
make you perform
Yep.
in that stressful time to access that logical brain
Yeah.
and the skill set that we need. All good things, right? But never in my almost 20-year career, never in my life of sleep issues has anybody ever said, hey, we need to teach you how to come back down
100%. Yep.
because we're not taught
We're
that.
not. Yep.
And correct if I'm wrong, this is the way I like to talk about it is you got the sympathetic nervous system, this is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest portion of that whole
The
vagus
accelerator
nerve
brake
system.
system. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it seems like the body robs from the parasympathetic to perform in the sympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And the parasympathetic, that rest and digest, is directly linked to heart, lungs, kidney, like you said, liver, the stomach, and digestion issues. And when I had my third wake up call, every single one of those was just out of control. And unexplainable, right? Sleeping on the couch 3-4 nights a week because I can't lay down, right? Regardless how clean I'm eating, and regardless how clean I'm eating and how much exercise I'm doing, the fat is building.
Right.
It's not coming off.
Right.
And everybody's like, "Oh, it's because you're in your 40s or whatever." And I'm like, I'm not going to subscribe to that. I think there's stressors in life when you're in your 40s for sure.
Yes.
That may contribute.
Or that you've had 40 years of stressors leading up to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I had to learn to do this. And when I saw the chart, the graphics and all this stuff, I was like, oh my God, every one of those I've got some sort of medication for I'm dealing with. And so one by one, I started knocking out action items that you could do to address those. And they went away. But I had to learn how to come down to that sympathetic nerve or parasympathetic.
I think that's a harder skill than learning to do the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing when we were doing SWAT training together that we would do that. We'd put ourselves into these stressful situations. But the part of it we never really took advantage of is, you go into these sympathetic surge situations, but you don't realize that you're probably not forming great memories when you do that. And so if you're trying to train, right, your brain's acting, but it's probably not doing what it needs to do as far as learning. I mean, there's a degree of it. So what you need to do is if you're going to secure those things away, if you're going to learn and you're going to teach away training scars and you're going to learn from a situation where you put someone in a high stress, now you have to rev the engine back and de-escalate and allow the brain to process that. And that's something we don't do because it was just never taught us. It's not a part of our culture. It's not something we realize, but you need to have that give and that take. It's great to have a situation we all learn from. No one touches the hot stove because we've been in that situation where we touched the hot stove and we learn from it, but it's because we've been able to back away and re-look at that situation and say, oh yeah, it did hurt, or oh, this was a bad situation, and oh, it led to this, and we connect the dots in the parasympathetic, in the downtime, the debrief, as opposed to the right in the heart of it. It's never great to teach in the middle of a catastrophe.
No, you can't.
You take care of the catastrophe, and then that's why in the ER we do a lot of debriefs. We do it right away because we are de-escalating, and it's that time where we can start to talk about it, and then you can start to process it more as you go home individually. But you can't do it in the moment. Right. And if our stressors are continuous, then when do we process?
Yeah.
You're constantly on edge. No,
I'm so glad you talked about that because that's part of our training culture is to do the debrief. What did we learn? What went well? What can we do better? Okay, we'll process that. Now we'll go have some time. Then we'll go back and do another scenario and the same thing until we have that success.
and it's not to say, I mean, I don't want us to say that the sympathetic or the cortisol stressors, they're needed. I mean, that's a part of our life. We need to be able to address it. And especially as the first responder culture, you're going to be put in those situations. So you need to train. And when you were talking about hearing my voice in your head, that really made me feel great because what I want to do when I train people is I want to teach you skills that you don't have to think about, that you respond so that you can save some of your brain for those higher executive functions. In the SWAT world, it was maybe I need to put a tourniquet on, but at the same time, while I'm doing this out of muscle memory, I'm looking around to see what the tactical environment necessitates. What's the mission demanding? Am I in immediate danger? Is someone else in immediate danger? And you're using those cognitive functions that are going on not to think about the tourniquet. You're thinking about everything else while you do the muscle memory. But you didn't get that muscle memory because it was the first time you're doing it. You've gotten the muscle memory because you've been put in that situation under high stress, and then you had to debrief and you learned it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I put it on the wrong way. I didn't turn this to windlass or whatever. And then you go back and do it again. And so you've repetitively done that. You've used this brake and accelerator brake system to allow yourself to learn, and now it's tucked away. And so now you can deal with those other things. So it's not a bad thing. It's just you have to be aware of, when am I accelerating? When am I braking?
Yeah, and if you're constantly accelerating, you're
Right.
going to have issues.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's right.
yes,
Yep.
there's just no way around it
Yep.
other than to deal with it and learn how to bring yourself back down. One of the things that I want to talk about, and we talked briefly about this, and I might scare you on it because I'm not an expert either.
I love it.
But I took a deep dive into heart rate variability.
Yeah.
And the reason I started looking at that is because I had stumbled across this idea of heart rate variability, and I was intrigued by it. But then I saw that the Olympic Training Center was using it in their training programs for their athletes and having huge performance results. I'm like, okay, you got my attention.
Yeah.
Because, guys like us probably need something cool. Otherwise,
Right,
we're going to be like,
exactly.
that sounds like somebody with a man bun and
Yeah,
saying
right.
I'm saying I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I looked into heart rate variability, and what I realized is that your heart is constantly changing the rhythm, even when you breathe in,
Yep.
going up, and breathe out, going down, because
Yep.
your heart's constantly trying to jockey for
Yep.
what it's going to need right now and next,
Yep.
right?
We see it on EKGs all the time. You'll see like the normal rhythm go up a little down, and as they're recording the EKG.
Okay.
And I'm sure you've seen it on you talked about it on your watch.
My
and,
monitor,
Yeah,
yeah.
your monitor. Yeah.
Yeah, so I bought a heart rate variability monitor, and I started looking at it, and it gives you a score. It's a heart rate variability score, HRV score. And the score is not, I'm sure it's all algorithms and matrix, and it compares it to all the other users of this app and whatnot.
Sure.
But the idea is the score is not how much stress you're under. It's how your body's capable of handling the stress going back up and back down.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that's really cool. And I plugged in, and my score was terrible. I mean, bottom 10, 15% of every user out there. And I'm like, that's not good. So this app that I had, and I can show it to you in our class, or we can talk about it later online. There's a lot of them out there, but this particular one said, okay, here's how you address that. And it was all breathing.
Yeah.
And there was different breathing for different things they wanted to do that they figured out. Like there's one for pre-workout, post-workout, deep relaxation, mental clarity in the moment, which we're taught even in the academy to do their box breathing: in for, hold for, out for, hold for, because it'll help bring that mental clarity when you're super stressed out. And it does work, but it doesn't work for as well as some of these other techniques for just coming down into that parasympathetic rest and digest.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I'm like, well, this is free. Breathing's free.
Right.
There's no medication.
And necessary. I mean, you got to do it anyway, right? So
we should have figured that out by now.
Right.
But you're not going to hear this from the medical environment. You're not going to, and not to pick on you, but as a doctor, I've never in my life, all the things I've dealt with, had a doctor say, well, why don't you practice deep relaxation? Why don't you practice breathing? Why don't you practice heart rate? They've always just assigned me pills.
Oh, yeah.
And the pills make me feel better, so I keep pushing, and the rest is history. So I start doing these breathing techniques at the bare minimum once a day when I wake up, and then I would do them before bed, and sometimes I would do them before and after my workout. And we're talking 3 to 5 minutes. This wasn't a huge time commitment, but it was enough for me to set myself aside, especially before bed, concentrate on relaxing, de-stressing, relaxing the parts of my body where I hold stress. And afterwards, you're like, man, I feel great. And all I did was breathe for 5 minutes, right? And then my heart rate variability score went up to top 20%. In relatively short time, couple of months. And then I start sleeping better.
Mm-hmm.
Then my heart issues start going away. My stomach's feeling better. My digestion's better.
Physical performance, I'm
yes.
sure got better.
And incorporated with other things that I was doing. So I can't say that HRV, it solved everything. It wasn't
the sole problem, but it was a block.
It was a huge part of the wellness program that we put together that I stumbled on just by trying everything I could. What works, what didn't works. And, I've got the data and I could show it. It's incredible. And so that's when I learned about that parasympathetic and that rest and digest is so important, and the mental clarity. So
we used to, for a while, I practiced Aikido as a martial art, both for the martial art aspect, but also just more for the kind of the mindset and the physical nature of it and what it did. And they would have us sit and kind of, you know, the Japanese style with the knees bent and your hands on you, and we would sit there and they'd have us breathe. And I remember thinking
Yeah.
as I was learning, and I'm like, this is dumb. This is
Right.
why are we doing this? We should be doing the, you know, the cool flips and the throws and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But you don't realize as soon as you start doing it, like, wait a sec. I can't tell you exactly what it's doing, but it's doing something, and
Yeah.
you can feel your body relax.
Yes.
You can feel yourself, and it. So you know, it's not. It's something I don't do as much as I should. But when I do that, I can actually feel my heart rate go down. I can feel my body detense. You can feel your shoulders start to relax. Take some time. If you did that, we used to do you take a deep breath in to the point of feeling like you were full, right?
Yeah.
So that maximum tidal volume. And then we would let it out over 12 seconds. And
Yes.
they would clap it out. And you're like, oh, and first of all, you realize I can barely let it out over 12 seconds. This is impossible. But as you do that, you just feel everything start to go down. And we actually teach that. Like, we're doing something, one of the most important procedures that we'll do in emergency medicine is called intubations, where we put someone on a ventilator, and they say that the quickest and cleanest way to kill someone is to mess up an intubation, because you're giving them medicines to not only sedate them but to paralyze them so they can't breathe on their own, so that you can put a tube in their airway and breathe for them. Well, if you screw any of that up, right, they're done. You can't recover from that. You have to be. And one of the things they tell us to do as we're doing it is to try to mimic the person's breathing, because you'll know what they're going through, which I thought was really kind of cool. So as we're paralyzing them, we're like, okay, hold your breath. And now you have, I mean, most people can probably hold their breath around 30 seconds comfortably or somewhere in that neighborhood. But you think about, I'm holding my breath in this high tense situation. My muscles are burning, my brain's burning energy. I got this person who's doing the same thing. And now you start thinking about what I'm doing, and you start to realize this breathing thing really is crucial. I mean, it really plays a role in everything we do. And so we downplay it because it's something we do it all the time. We, you know, breathe on our own. We just don't know how to do it efficiently.
Agreed. We don't even know how to breathe.
Yeah. And so when you're in a situation where you're focusing on how bad it is to breathe and how hurtful it is to not breathe well, you get a sense of, okay, this really is important. And you think about what we do on a daily basis. We talked about this earlier, our culture is not terribly active. I mean, we have bursts of activity. Maybe we'll work out for an hour or something like that, or half an hour or whatever, but we're pretty sedentary. And so our breathing variability does not change. And if our breathing variability isn't changing very much, and we're not taking huge breaths or staggered breaths or holding our breath, what is that doing to the rest of our system? How can our heart compensate? How can our muscles, our blood compensate? I mean, part of the reason we yawn is so that we can shift blood to different parts of our body, right? And the diaphragm acts as a bellows, and it pulls things back and forth and blood back to our heart and all this kind of stuff. Well, if we're not doing that, if we're just kind of maintaining these short, shallow breaths, the rest of our body, it's kind of like, you know, it's the coxswain of a boat. If the coxswain isn't calling out the cadence, what's the rest of the crew going to do? And same idea, you know. So I think you're hitting on some very important stuff that we don't take into consideration, because it's something we do every day. We don't think about it. It's autonomic.
Well, yeah, and it's been around for thousands of years. I mean, your martial art. I mean, when was that developed?
Oh yeah,
hundreds,
exactly,
at least hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And so it's not like it's new.
No,
it's been known.
We just don't employ it.
Well, sure, and there's no money in it.
Exactly. It's not sexy. It's not sexy.
No, Pfizer, I mean, I pick on Pfizer, but, you know, name your pharmaceutical company. They're not going to say, you know what you really need to do?
Right.
Just try breathing before bed and relaxing. Right. They're not going to do that.
Right. Gym memberships don't sell and say, hey, come for $30 a month, come breathe with us.
Yeah. I mean, they're out there. I mean, yoga stuff and that works too.
Yeah.
But you got to subscribe to it, and there is a huge value to that. You know, addressing and stretching and addressing those places where you handle stress physically or tensing and stuff like that. Yeah. All stuff that you can do, the yoga, the breathing, all, you know, relatively free. Even some guided breathing apps on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can just Google it, and you'll get something. But taking that time to go back to sleep as that sleep prep, what a great idea to start transition your body to get ready for sleep, to get down in that, because that was my problem. I could never go to sleep. Yeah. I was like a kid my entire life. I just hated bedtime. Hated it. It was
Did
miserable.
you wake up early in the morning as well, or was it just more getting to sleep was hard?
It was getting to sleep. My brain would just not shut off. The proverbial, you know, I can't shut it off. So I would toss and turn. And, you know, I show this in the charts that I have. I'll show, like, here's a very typical example before I started this process where, you know, my stressors are up and I'm not getting any sleep rhythm until like 3:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
alarm goes off at 6.
Yeah.
So I never really got restorative
Yeah.
sleep. And the
Yeah.
alarm just felt like I got hit by a truck. I hated day shift. I still
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But I like nighttime better anyway, for working, because it's good for my sleep rhythm, but it's also fun work.
Yeah. Yeah.
The day shift stuff was just awful for me because my sleep cycle would start at about 3:30 in the morning, and my alarm would go off at 6,
Yeah.
and so I was never restored. And so then, I would go through these patterns where I'd have 4 or 5 days like that, and then I would crash for 12 hours
Yeah.
because my body's just done.
Well, and that's the thing that I thought was interesting. When we used to have once a year during residency, someone would come and talk to us and give a lecture on sleep. And it's always one of those lectures like, oh, it's not
Okay.
sexy. Okay, it's like, but it's probably one of the lectures that I remember some of the topics of the most, like, don't let daylight hit your eyes and all these little things that they would talk about. And one of the things they talked about was you can't store sleep. You can't make up sleep.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as banking sleep. You either get it or you don't. And so you need to get onto these patterns, because it's not like you could say, hey, you know what, I'm going to work super hard for 78 hours, or, whatever, 72 hours, and then I'll sleep. I'll catch up on my sleep.
Nope.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
Yeah. So,
and if you're not sleeping, if you're not getting that restorative sleep, you're never coming down into the rest and digest. You're never coming, and you start having those issues like I was having, right? So it's all cool stuff. I love it.
And we had talked about this a little bit too, but one of the things I was always impressed with when we were talking about the ventilator and people breathing on the ventilator, one of the things we talk about is with a thing called breath stacking. And what that is if someone takes a deep breath and then they let it out on the ventilator, but the ventilator triggers the next breath before they get it all out, then they have this residual air in there that's trapped. So it's stuck there. And so you take the next full breath and it tries to come down, but it doesn't, the ventilator triggers it again before it goes all out. So now you have this residual air that's building up, right? And over time, that can lead to the point where it just basically collapses your system, your blood doesn't get to your heart, and you die. And it doesn't take long to do that. And it's not really hard to correlate that with anything in life where we don't resume our natural zero, our normal point. So if it's sleep, if you're asking your body to run up at this level and then you don't get back down to zero, and you kind of do that idea of breath stacking, how long is it going to take before you run out of energy or patience or frustration or do something stupid or whatever it might be? It doesn't take long for that to catch up. So you need to get that, you need to come down to your baseline and allow yourself to be at that baseline for a while before you rev yourself back up. I mean, it's all ties in. I mean, it's all, everything we've talked about really correlates with one another.
Love it. Love it. And, I want to tell people out there, I mean, if we haven't convinced you yet, I'll come to your organization and do that myself, because I believe in this so much. But what I really want people to understand is that I can't think, and I mean, this is bad on me, but I cannot think of anyone else that I know of that's had worse sleep issues than me. I mean, I was at the doctor in the 5th grade.
Wow.
And so this is a lifetime struggle for me. This was an epiphany when I figured it out. And what I want to impress upon you is that there are action items, things you can control that you can do to actually positively affect your sleep. I never considered that a possibility because I was such a horrible sleeper. And so I want to encourage you that. I also have the ability to do it when I work graveyard and when I go back to day shift on my days off or that daytime schedule, right? And I can
transition.
I can actually do those things, and it works. And I've got the data. I showed it.
How long did it take you before you did this? How long would it take you to transition from a night schedule to a day schedule?
Well, probably 2 days.
Wow, that's actually
right short, to feel like okay, what are we doing today? Yeah. Now I'm like, I'm up. Wow. I'm ready to go. I turn the light switch on, and then I've got a way to turn it back off. That's not perfect, and I do have my bad sleep days, but largely successful. Like I came into this morning totally depleted because of what happened the day before. Very little sleep. It was a business things. We had to get some stuff done, and I only got several hours of sleep, and that happens. It's life. So I knew last night's shift, I was like, man, I need to be intentional on my sleep prep, because I am drained.
Right.
And so I did all the things. And part of what I do, and we haven't talked about this, is the bilateral movement that activates left brain, right brain. It kind of stimulates and helps brains process. So I'm walking on the treadmill on my lunch break, which I save till about an hour and a half before the end of my shift. And then I do the other sleep prep things, the breathing and the nutrition, no caffeine, just using water throughout the night. And I get home, and before you got here, I forgot to mention this. I was almost 100% fully recovered in one sleep cycle during the day, which was
Wow.
opposite of my normal schedule. So, not to brag about that, but I'm like, I just want to give people hope. There is
Yeah.
ways to do it. You can be intentional, and it has a profound effect on your
Yeah.
life because it helps your mental clarity, it helps
Yeah.
your emotions, all of that. So,
It's funny. I've seen that technique, not necessarily for sleep, but for anxiety. A lot of
yes,
people will use it for anxiety, which obviously is going to play a huge role in your sleep habits as well. But kind of that engaging right brain, left brain, almost like if I'm correct, it's kind of exhausting it. It's kind of like syncing them up, and I don't know all the details on it,
I
but
think
I've
it's
seen it.
similar to REM.
Is that what it
I
is?
think it's
Okay.
similar
Yeah.
to the REM
Yeah.
cycle of left brain, right
Yeah.
brain, that rapid eye movement.
It's crazy.
It sounds like voodoo, but it works.
I sometimes it's funny because people talk about, well, is it a placebo effect or who cares
Yeah.
if it works? If I'm sleeping, whatever it takes. I mean,
Oh,
short of drugs and that kind of stuff.
yeah. I
But
mean, I'd given up on sleep a
yeah,
decade ago
oh
or
man,
more. I never thought it was a possibility, but
yeah,
it is, and it makes a huge impact on the rest of your life
yeah,
and help you process that cortisol and that bilateral
yeah,
movement too.
yeah,
Getting that cortisol used out of
yeah,
your system, the
yeah,
adrenaline.
yeah,
It's awesome stuff. You had mentioned memories,
mm,
bad memories.
yeah,
I struggled with bad memories forever.
yeah,
My long-term memory wasn't great. My short-term memory was awesome.
hmm,
Why? I think because I was constantly up here in the
oh yeah,
SNS, right? And so
100%.
short-term, you
Yep,
bet.
yep,
Long-term, uh-oh.
yeah,
And a lot of that had to do with the effects of all of these hormones, right? That was having on my ability to actually experience emotion.
yeah,
And yeah, it's tough for me to talk about because I'm embarrassed of it and I feel like I'm broken, but I have to realize that I'm not. It's because my baseline starts coming up here
hmm,
and I never get down in here.
hmm,
And we have this weird ability, I think, as first responders to block out emotion. Like you
hmm,
said, we've got to move on,
right,
right? And I think the effects of that is that we don't, over time, it builds and builds and builds, and we don't actually experience emotion
hmm,
for a number of different reasons
right.
that I still don't totally
Or
understand.
revisit it. We don't allow ourselves to revisit it as well.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
continues.
unless
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a PTSD moment
Right,
and
right,
then it's
exactly.
like you
Yep,
experience it and you don't want to,
right,
that's a
right.
problem. We can
Yep,
get rid of that. Yep, you can
yep.
totally do that. But I would recognize that we were having a fun time. I would recognize that this was a great moment, but I wasn't. If I'm being honest, looking backward, and I wasn't sharing this with the people around me, but I wasn't really experiencing the happiness. I wasn't really experiencing the joy. I
Sure.
wasn't really experiencing the emotion tied to it.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that, memories get tied to emotions,
Hmm.
right? I mean, think about a great emotional event in your life, maybe the birth of your children or something similar. You're going to remember everything about that day, but nothing about the day before.
Yeah.
And it's because when you sleep and all this stuff with your brains, it categorizes it. That's an important one. We'll put that away. That's important. Well, if you have a high emotion, like, oh, that's important. We'll put it away. If you don't have the emotion, maybe it gets lost.
Yeah.
And so, I looked at my phone. I was adamant about taking tons of pictures because I would remember the moments
Yeah.
because without the pictures, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you guys experienced that too, but that lack of emotion. And when you said something super important that I keyed in on was the one that always seems to get through is anger.
Oh, absolutely.
Anger is, I don't know, socially acceptable. It's back in the SNS,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's where your brain wants to live.
Right.
And so a lot of people would experience first responders as like, oh, you're just angry. I'm like, that's not actually true. You're just seeing when the anger comes through, but you're
Right.
not seeing anything
Right.
else because they're not experiencing it. It's not that they're angry.
Yeah.
Do you experience that too, or do you see people that
Actually,
are
it's funny
angry
you
in your
bring that
job?
up, and I hadn't planned on it, but I'm glad you did. For me, anger and frustration are the primary manifestations of um, when I'm dealing with a hard time. So
Yeah.
whether it's depression or anxiety or lack of sleep, for me, it usually comes out as anger and frustration.
Yep.
Some people will cry. Some people will sleep. There's different. But for me, it's anger, and it's one of the things that it's another. I've gotten so good at suppressing other emotions that I have to now suppress that.
Yes.
And the sad thing is that when you suppress emotions, I mean, emotions are. This is kind of an ugly metaphor or simile, but they're like an abscess, right? I mean, if you allow that abscess to fester and grow, it's just a matter of time before they come out, and you don't get to control how they come out. So you might as well relieve the pressure early on and get that stuff out of there.
Yeah.
And my wife and I mean, she, God willing, praising her. Thank you, Lord, for her, that woman, because she's dealt with a lot of anger issues that I've had to deal with, and walked through me with it. And it's taken a while to realize, hey, man, this is not the core issue. The core issue is something else.
Yeah.
This is just how you're manifesting
Yeah.
it. This is how it's coming out.
Yeah. And for me, I think the absolute lifesaver in this for me is when I really stumbled into therapy.
Yeah.
Because it's not that, your therapist is going to like go inside your brain and fix you.
No.
They're just going to help you understand what's going on, and they're the expert in understanding that link and telling you how to pull it out.
Absolutely.
And I'm so grateful for that. So, if there's anything else I can advocate for your wellness is, go to a therapist. We don't know our brains and bodies are connected. You don't even realize it most of the time until they say it, and you're like, oh God, you're right. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I know?
And this is just me. I've said this, and my wife and I don't think I'm breaking any confidences here. We've been married for 28 years. We've had a great marriage. And there was a time when we were not struggling together, but just I was dealing with a lot of anger stuff and just emotional stuff that I didn't know how to process. And she was like, hey, why don't we just try couples therapy so we can talk to someone? It wasn't because we were struggling as a marriage, but it was just and what I realized is that therapy, using even the term therapy or a counselor, really is doing a disservice, because they're really a coach. Right. I mean, you wouldn't form a basketball team and go into any high competition without a coach watching from the sidelines being like, or an NFL team wouldn't be like, hey, we're fine this time. We got a quarterback in our team. We don't need a coach. No, you got coaches everywhere. You got them up in the booth. You got them on the sideline. And why are they there? Because they're third party people who can look objectively and say, hey, this is what's going on. I see the forest for the trees, or the trees for the forest, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I can tell you how to get better.
Yeah.
Or I can walk with you through how to get better.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't see it. And so to call someone, when someone says like therapist, that's kind of the term we've always used, but it always kind of rubs me the wrong way, because that's not what they're doing. They're not fixing you. Right. They're showing you maybe a perspective you don't see quite yet, or introducing a thought that maybe you haven't had yet. Yeah. And they're just your coach. They're just,
That's exactly how I describe it. And it's different from a life coach. We're not talking about someone who says, I'm a life coach.
Exactly.
No, these are medically trained professionals that deeply understand how the brain works. Yeah. And they're therapists, but I'd say the same thing as coach. A good coach is not going to, I say this all the time, but a good coach isn't going to swing the bat for you. A good coach isn't going to run the bases. A good coach isn't going to throw the ball for the pitcher. They're going to analyze, and they're going to understand where the mechanics, where the problems are, and they're going to help you address it, but you got to do the work. And then afterwards, just like any sport, you're like, oh, yeah, I am swinging harder. I am throwing faster, and it is easier.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you can kind of self-diagnose from there. But even some of the best professional athletes I've ever seen that you look into, they still have coaches. They still have private coaches.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember, even in golf, I'm not going to say names, but even in golf, you look at, someone who's at the end of the day, they're all partying or they're going to their little shindigs or whatever. And you have one guy that's out with a coach who's in a massive lead. Why is he doing that? Because he's perfecting his swing for the next day. And I'm like, if they're at that level having a coach, why wouldn't I want
not? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh, because we will get advocates or teachers for every little aspect of our life, except the most important thing, that is life. We don't, the thing that we are going to have, God willing, 90 years of, and we have no idea what's at this end. And we don't want more advocates and more help with it. Doesn't make sense.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter that you go. It doesn't, nobody, when I started going, I was pretty guarded about that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was too. I was too. I was like, this is crap.
You're doing stuff. I'm good. And then after a while, people close to me would learn, or I would feel comfortable sharing that. Yeah, I'm going through therapy, and I'm learning a lot about my brain and body. And I started going on my own tangents about the stuff that I was learning and doing and trying. And I never got one person that was negative about that. No. Not once. No. Not once did they say, "Oh, you gave up. Oh, you're weak." They were like, that's awesome. Good for you. Like, maybe I should do that too. And I'm like, you should.
Yeah. But again, we see this all the time. Mental health has been stigmatized over the last 100 years. And even though we've had a revolution in how we deal with mental health, it still hasn't reached that main, that degree in society where we can say, hey, you know what? Mental health is something we really need to be advocates for. Yeah. And that mental health, we think mental health, we think schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or depression or suicidality. And those are the extremes, no question, and those need to be dealt with. But you know what? Mental health is, how do I deal with the person I can't stand at work, or
Yeah.
how do I deal with this frustration in my life that I can't seem to get over because of my whatever parental trauma, or trauma, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
There's little things we deal with, but the little things are the things we need to take care of, right? I mean, just like we're dealing with the sleep thing, we take care of the little things, the big things take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Same thing with mental health, and especially with and all those things we've talked about, if you don't deal with them, you're going to lead to depression. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the things about depression, is you start to see it's almost not become too late, but it's already reared its ugly head because we haven't taken care of these little things.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's so much going on up here with like you talk about the stressors, the hormones, the
oh,
chemicals,
oh
all
yeah.
that stuff that we don't even
know.
know.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if everybody could understand that
Right.
you
Right.
should take care
Right.
of that because
Right.
it is happening whether you want to or not.
Right.
And to bring it full circle, you can see on brain scans. I'm not the expert. I've just read every book and YouTube video, everything I could dive into. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah, they're telling you and they're showing you the brain scans that this stuff is actually measurable. They're actually seeing it. It's not a hypothetical. This is scientific stuff. They're like, look, there's the rest and digest. There's the SNS. There's the stressors. There's the hormones. There's what the brain is doing.
Right.
And there's the left brain, right brain signals when they sleep. And if you don't have that, here's the effects. It's like, why are we so pig-headed about it? Bull-headed about it.
I don't know why. I mean, because it is, I mean, you look at something from a scientific standpoint. All scientific standpoint is you've taken a methodology and you've shown it to be something to be reproducible outside of any other effects, right? You've eliminated the variables. You've had a control. You take care. You have a hypothesis. You run the hypothesis. You see if it does or does not work. Mm-hmm. Well, our hypothesis is that we're all kind of mentally screwed up, right? I don't think it's much of a hypothetical stretch to say that. And yet you can go in and, we've all had experiences where we're sitting around a table or talking to friends and we're all like, hey, I wake up at 3 a.m. with stress. Oh my gosh, I do too. And everyone to a person says, hey, you know what? I do that. So if we're all experiencing that same thing, why don't we do something about this? Why don't we try something and share it with others?
Yes.
And if we can try something that, this is, I'm a Scrooge, right? I mean, if I don't have to spend money, I won't, right? So if I can do something for relatively cheap that doesn't, I'm in. Let's do this. Try it out. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. I move on to something else.
Right.
But let's give it a shot. And you have to give it a real, a try. I mean, one night of doing some breathing exercises or whatever it might be, whatever you're taught, that may not be necessarily an adequate scientific study. You may need to do it for a month or 2 months.
Yes.
But you need to do something where you eliminate the variables. You say, okay, I'm not going, maybe I say I'm going to eliminate alcohol and see, but I'll still drink caffeine and see how that works. Or I'm going to do the breathing exercise and see if that works. And then start eliminating the other variables until you get your hypothesis down. That's a scientific method. There's nothing unique about that. That's just simply doing a study to see how it, but you also have to realize, you have to look back and be able to say, hey, you know what? This did work. Or it didn't, and I need to do something better.
Right.
You need to be, that's the approach you need to take.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, it's free.
And it
will save you money on alcohol. It will save you money on food.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the alcohol that's used for people to try to sleep, I mean, what could we do with the money that was saved on the alcohol? What was alcohol used?
Right. Even caffeine.
And caffeine, absolutely.
I have a cup of coffee, at the beginning of my shift. It's kind of a ritual, and then I'm done, and it's water for the rest of the time.
Yeah,
and I can successfully stay awake at night.
And I think that's, again, to the point that we've been saying here, is that there is a balance to everything. It's not to say that alcohol is bad. It's not to say that caffeine is bad. But, anything in excess, you take a bowl if you eat nothing but green peas for the rest of your day, guess what? That's bad for you. You have to have everything in moderation and balance. I don't think that's not again, talk about an idiom that's probably thousands of years old. But we don't do that. American culture doesn't do anything in moderation. We do things to excess
every time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do mention, when we train on this stuff and we teach on it, like, I'm not going to be the guy that says don't have alcohol. I'm not going to be the guy that says don't have caffeine.
Don't live life.
I've got this 80-20 rule that we teach, but also, when is the best time to have alcohol? When is the best time to have a sugary snack? When is the best time to have coffee? Just so that you can be aware of what your body's doing. Have it. Don't have it in excess, obviously.
Right.
But you can still do it.
Right. Or know that, hey, maybe, like for me, in 2004, in residency, first of all, let me back up. In residency, they would always feed us, right? So you'd always go to these lunchtime teaching times, or they'd have a half day of dedicated didactic academic stuff we'd have to learn. They'd always feed us. And the food was always, if it was breakfast time, donuts and coffee. If it was lunchtime, it was pizza and soda pop, right? And then we never really had dinners. So it's just like, that's what all you were getting. So I literally took an oath that I was not going to eat donuts or drink pop anymore. But I didn't do that because they were inherently bad. It was because I knew I couldn't do that for myself.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be times when you have to say, man, I just need to get this out of my life. And that's not a bad thing. But at the same time, it's not the alcohol that's bad. It's what you're doing with the alcohol. Agreed. Or what you're doing with the caffeine. That's what you need to be aware of. But you also need to know for yourself, am I the type of person who it's all or nothing? Or am I the type of person who I can moderate this? I just need to know to do it. And that's just being, honest with yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Not to mention, if you're struggling with that, you maybe should get rid of it
and
learn how to moderate with it. But I totally agree. And, you can use those things. And one of the things that I hear a lot from first responders is like, oh, I can have this energy drink right now and I'll go to bed in an hour, I'll be fine. And they sleep. And I'm like, you're not that's a sign. That's a problem. If you can have a cup of coffee or energy drink and go to sleep, that means your baseline is so far up here that we have an issue. Number one. And number two, I'm like, start monitoring, get a sleep monitor. I use Garmin. Garmin, look for a contract. Sure, that'd be great. But
That's right.
It's not a sponsor. It's not, they're not paying me, but I use Garmin and it has an app and I've learned to use that. It's been great, but monitor your sleep in that scenario. And I guarantee you're maybe unconscious, but you are not getting restful, restorative sleep. And that's why it drove me nuts to go back to the very beginning of our conversation of like people saying, oh yeah, you need 7 hours. Well, okay, if you can get 7 hours, but you need 7 hours of restful, restorative sleep. And that process of that sleep prep starts hours, if not at least 4 to 6 hours or more, depending on alcohol and other things, before you go to bed. And you got to start taking it seriously. And I was notorious for that. Like I hated going to bed on an empty stomach. I wanted a nice sugary carbohydrate big snack before the bed, and hibernate. And it's like, well, it's not good sleep, and it's a really great way to build fat.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Right? Well, it does suppress your cortisol levels. I think they found that carbo loading will suppress your cortisol levels because cortisol levels will help mobilize fat. So if you want to suppress your cortisol levels, that's a great way of doing it right there. Big old carbo load of donuts and whatever you need.
And then get fat.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here. I probably want to have you back. I mean, it's such important stuff. This is the scientific stuff. This is the real stuff. And you're somebody who not only goes through it, you understand us, you're living it, but we're talking about it. You're the expert. I love it.
Stuff.
Is there anything we haven't talked about or that you wanted to mention that we didn't get done today?
I don't think. I mean, I think if I had to leave with a keynote or a key one sentence, it would be, first of all, what you're doing here is fantastic because I don't think enough people do this where we, especially as guys, and I don't mean to make a gender specific statement, but most guys that I know don't open up. And that's regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of they're single or married, regardless of age. We just, in the United States culture, and this is probably true throughout the world now, is just that we just don't open up. We don't talk about things. And again, it's not gender specific, but that's just my experience. And so to have this time where we can talk about things and we can say, hey, you know what? I'm not the only person that is experiencing this. I'm going to share my experience. Hopefully this helps someone else. This is phenomenal. So
I appreciate it.
I'm super excited about what you're doing here. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. And I'm excited to see where this goes. And this is fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
And we're gonna sleep so well tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna sleep really well. All right, Doc. Thanks so much again. I'm sure we'll have you back. It's been great having you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. If you could like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video with others, we would so appreciate your support in growing our channel. And we'll see you next time.